Did the Phoenix Suns just find their diamond in the rough, or is this just a bench player that they can break in case of emergency? We're breaking it down. It's a breaking news edition of PHNX Suns. Psychos and sickos unite for an overseas MVP edition of PHNX Suns, coming to you live from my home studio. I literally just walked in through the door coming off of our free agency review slash preview slash whatever the hell was happening at the beginning at 3 o'clock when that just went down. So if you want a breakdown of all of that, you can check out our live show from earlier. But the Phoenix Suns have used their final roster spot on Nigel Hayes-Davis. This guy has been an accomplished player overseas. We're going to break down some of his game. We're going to tell you how he got here and why the Phoenix Suns would even do this in the first place. But we appreciate all of you, the psychos and sickos in the chat right now, for joining us. It's just a solo edition, so we won't go for too long here, but we appreciate all of y'all being in the chat. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as well. If you're listening on audio, 5-star reviews, well, you know the drill by now. They go a long, long, long way. So yeah, we went through a bunch. We went through a bunch of free agent options for the Suns over the last month and a half, like 2 months now at this point. We just did an entire free agency show as well. And I'll tell you what, Nigel Hayes-Davis was not on the list for guys that we were expecting the Suns to acquire. Now, listen, I get why everybody, I get it. I get why everybody would be shocked by this or upset by this, because it's not a Chris Paul, because it's not, you know, a big name like a Gershon Yabusele or a Russell Westbrook, if that was something you were interested in, or a Taurean Prince. I mean, this is somebody, let's be quite frank, has not played in the NBA since 2018, since he came out of Wisconsin. Now, here's the thing. I get that a lot of people are going to see overseas player and immediately be out, right? And honestly, there's not always a great track record of these guys that went and played overseas, but then came back over here and played in America. But one of the players that we were talking about as somebody who we wanted the Suns to sign and we wanted the Suns to target in free agency was Gershon Yabusele, who just played his first game or just played overseas for a couple of years after being in the NBA and just played his first season back for the Philadelphia 76ers. And now we're sitting here clamoring for the Suns to sign him. So first things first, before we get a little bit more in depth for what his game is and what he can bring, I just want to remind everybody not to instantly discount this guy just because he played overseas. Lenny in the chat says, who did we just sign, Erik? Is he good? Look, the reality is that he was one of the best players overseas in the Turkish League, in the Euroleague. He won MVPs. He won Finals MVP. He was Fenerbahce's leading scorer overseas this year, 16.1 points per game. He shot good from three. He about 5.3 rebounds per game. He's 6'8" with a 7'3" wingspan, right? So hypothetically, like if we're talking best case scenario here, this is the guy that can maybe fill in into your power forward role, right? The same thing that you're looking at Rasheer Fleming, best case scenario, right? He's 6'9" and he can shoot the three ball. But this guy's a little bit more polished than Rasheer Fleming, but he wasn't always that way. When he played in the league in 2018, he split time between a couple of teams and he averaged like 3 points per game, right? So this is somebody that was not an NBA player, but guess how long 2018 was? Guess how long ago that was? That was a long time ago. That was 7 years ago at this point. He's been overseas. I got some quotes from Gerald that he's been gathering from people. People are saying hopefully he's polished. I want to hear all of your thoughts as well. So hit that like button, hit that subscribe button too. Here's the thing with Nigel Hayes-Davis, right? In reality, is he going to be somebody who is going to be starting for the Phoenix Suns this year? Probably not. But when you look at like a prototypical NBA player and what you want out of an NBA player, let's treat Nigel Hayes-Davis as a draft prospect, even though he's on the older side of his career, right? 6'8", 7'3" wingspan. Okay. When you break it down like that, you like it. That's a prototypical NBA build. That's a type of build that you want out of somebody, right? Then you look at the skill set. Does he have touch? Absolutely. Does he have shooting ability? Overseas? Absolutely. So 6'8" with a 7'3" wingspan, somebody that could stretch it out on the floor, has a quick, smooth release, good touch on floaters as well, somebody who was a good scorer and Fenerbahce's leading scorer this past season. When you watch some of the three-pointers that he takes as well, it's not all like catch and shoot three-pointers. A lot of it is self-creation. A lot of it is off the dribble. Now, can he do that in the NBA? I'll be honest with you, I don't know. Right. But the same way that we break down some college kids games, that there's a way to step up. We have somebody here who says, bro, just stop. Total bench player. Sasha Veneskov is better than him and couldn't do bleep on the Kings. I'm not telling you he's a starter. This guy most likely is going to be a piece off the bench or a break in case of emergency guy. That's just the reality of who he is. Right. But again, if your break in case of emergency guy is 6'8" with a 7'3" wingspan who can shoot threes, do a little bit off the dribble, his post game, especially driving in off the post, getting some floaters with his offhand when he's been off balance. Like these are all things that he could do on a high level overseas. Now, this is not just like some role player from overseas. This was a finals MVP. This was an MVP. He played in Euroleague. He played in the Turkish league. And I think what excites me the most about that wingspan, besides the three-point shooting, is hopefully some sort of defensive versatility. Right now, this guy is playing from overseas. I'm not saying that this guy is going to be starting for the Phoenix Suns. Daniel says, but is he Phoenix Suns worthy? I think that's a good question, right? I can't tell you for sure because I haven't seen him play NBA basketball, right? Some of the names that we had talked about before, whether it was a Chris Paul, whether it was a Gershon Yabusele, a Taurean Prince, right? Like these are names that we've seen and have seen proven it in the NBA. What the Phoenix Suns are doing right now, they're taking a risk. They're taking a gamble. They've obviously scouted this guy because you're not going to sign him to a guaranteed deal and use your final roster spot on him if you don't like him, right? Or if you haven't watched him. You're not just going to say, hey, you won, the finals MVP and an MVP in the EuroLeague and in the Turkish league, and that's that. So I want everybody to just take a second here. I'm going to give you some context on things from our friend Gerald Bourguet. Talked to Frank Kaminsky, who played with Nigel Hayes-Davis at Wisconsin on the Suns' new arrival, said, quote, hardest worker you'll find out there. He's been one of the best players in Europe the past 2 years, deserves the opportunity. Okay. So one of the best players in Europe overseas. And I highly recommend people listen, I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that I've been keeping up to date with all Nigel Hayes-Davis tape. But this is somebody that I have been keeping slight tabs on overseas. I do like overseas basketball. Psychos and sickos unite. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna say that I've been grinding his film, right? But I will tell you this, right? From what I saw out of him, and from what you get out of the prospect and everything like that, I truly do think that this is like a prototypical NBA build. And one of the things that he went and worked on overseas was his ball creation as well, and being off the dribble, everything like that. So Gerald also has some more context. He talked to Draft Deeper, which is Nathan Grubel, who is a basketball analyst and consultant for No Ceilings NBA. We've always been tapped in with the No Ceilings NBA. Says Nigel Hayes-Davis has improved as a shooter and handler since he's been at the States, as 6'8" with his athleticism and motor, quote, best traits for a college player, or parentheses, with some more skill, could be the Yabusele signing of this offseason. Quote, the Suns knocked it out of the park given the hand they dealt themselves. Either way, with the final roster spot here, the Suns were going to be taking a gamble, right? Because I don't think they were going to get a Yabusele type. I don't think they were going to be able to get a Taurean Prince type. These are players that are most likely going to go for more money. Even Chris Paul. I'm not even sure if Chris Paul would have gone to the Phoenix Suns. You saw the reports, but that he was interested in the Suns and it was debating back and forth with the Clippers. But at the same time, we also saw other reports that, he's not as interested in Phoenix as he is going back to LA. So when you take this final roster spot here, and again, the Suns are not competing this year. The Suns are not trying to win a championship. And you're trying to take a guy, and let's just say you get a 6'8" guy with a 7'3" wingspan who has a high motor, which is something that this team has been pushing for their players to get. Somebody who made it to the NBA, it didn't work out, went overseas, worked his ass off overseas, improved his handle, his three-point shot, his off-the-dribble ability, and everything like that. When you work at all of that and you put it together to earn a spot over in the NBA, that fits the type of culture, that fits the type of identity that Brian Gregory and that Matt Ishbia want. As much as I wanted CP3, and I told y'all that CP3 was my number one option that I wanted as a free agent, there is something to be said about investing that roster spot in somebody that's older. Now, I thought it was worth it for the investment of your young guys and for teaching and for having that dog in him as well as having a first-time head coach in Jordan Ott and putting that out there. So, again, have the Phoenix Suns found their starting power forward? I would say most likely not, but this is somebody that averaged 16.1 points per game and led Fenerbahce in scoring last year, shot 41% on over 5 3-pointers attempted per game, shot 91% from the free throw line. You watch his tape, he's smooth off the dribble, he's smooth off a jab step, hand in his face contest. Like, this isn't somebody who you look at his game and you ask yourself this question of how does he make it to the NBA, right? You don't watch him shoot off the dribble and go around defenses, and especially on defense, he's blocking shots, he can space the floor, like he can do a little bit of everything. You don't look at that prototypical archetype of a player and say, that's not an NBA player, right? Now, if a best case scenario plays out and they end up having him start, they're going to look like a genius, right? If they don't, and he's just a bench guy, then what did you do? You used a 1-year guaranteed contract, basically your vet minimum contract, your 15th roster spot on somebody who was a EuroLeague MVP, a Turkish League Finals MVP, and is 6'8" with a 7'3" wingspan and can shoot threes. If I break that down for you and I just told you that without saying the name, you would say, yeah, maybe that guy does deserve an NBA roster spot. Once again, I want to reset here. I want to thank everybody else in here who's joining us. Already 300 of you in here. Yeah, this guy's not getting a 5-year deal. He's not signed to a max contract. They're not, marrying the next couple of years of Devin Booker alongside of him. And by all accounts, from former college teammates, he's a hard worker. And when you look at how some of the people in the EuroLeague have been writing about him as well, I think that sheds a little bit of light. Let me read you a little something from somebody who covers the EuroLeague here. A pillar of versatility and consistency. Nigel Hayes-Davis delivered the best season of his EuroLeague career in 2024-2025, a two-way force for Fenerbahce. Hayes-Davis combined elite defensive effort with an expanded offensive role, becoming one of the most reliable forwards in the league. He averaged 16.8 points per game, 5.2 rebounds, 1.1 steals per game, while shooting 42.3% from beyond the arc, whether spacing the floor, slashing to the basket, or locking down the opponent's best wing player, which is important to note here. Hayes-Davis contributed in every facet of the game. His physicality and high basketball IQ allowed Fenerbahce to switch defensively with confidence, and his quiet leadership set the tone for a cohesive, disciplined squad. Time and again, he delivered in clutch moments, hitting big shots and making crucial defensive stops to help Fenerbahce finish the regular season in second place. This all-EuroLeague first-team selection, the second of Hayes-Davis's career, is a testament to the invaluable impact he had on one of the league's top teams. So you're taking one of the best players on one of the best overseas teams who guarded the best player on the opposing team, hit threes, the clutch part as well. He hit multiple shots at the end of the buzzer. He hit game winners. He did a ton, right? So when you break that down for a final roster spot here, I don't hate it. Now, if you told me that all of the guys that we talked about on the Suns free agency special, none of them would have been on the Suns as a free agent, I probably would have been a little disappointed. Am I a little disappointed about this? I wouldn't say disappointed. I'd say I'm kind of like swinging either way on this, where I'm excited at the fact that this guy has a lot of potential And the fact that if you look at the buildables and you look at what he did overseas and how he's grown and the testaments to his hard work and his leadership, he fits in exactly with what this team wants and what this team needs. I also do worry, though, about not being an NBA player, right? But I think if Guerschon Yabusele had not been so impactful for the 76ers, and again, a non-important situation, right? Like Guerschon wasn't playing for a 76ers team that was competing for a championship. He wasn't competing for a team that was, going all in and starting for a top 4 team in the Eastern Conference. The reason why Guerschon Yabusele got all his minutes in Philly was because there was a ton of injuries and they needed somebody to fill in. So I think that the fact that it's an unknown is enticing. It's scary. But if you're going to take a shot on somebody, right? Like, why not be first on this? And why not do it this year? Why not do it when there are no championship expectations? Why not do it when you have a couple other people who might fit that build, but you don't have a full-on starting power forward, right? You don't. You especially don't have somebody who is proven on a professional level. As much as I like Rasheer Fleming, as much as I want to give credit to him at St. Joe's and playing in the A-10, I'll tell you what, man, playing in the Turkish league, playing in the Euroleague, that is a lot harder a basketball than playing in college basketball. And for those who don't know that, like, you got to learn. It's not scary. It's just a flyer. I get what you're saying. We do have a 99-cent super chat from KJ Burton. They followed up with a regular chat, so I want to make sure to read that. KJ Burton says, for all we know, he could come in and be the hardest worker on the team and set a tone culturally. That's what the Suns need, right? Again, do we want somebody who can start? Do we want somebody who can play all the time? Sure. If this is a team that I'm looking at and saying, how are you going to compete with the Denver Nuggets? How are you going to compete with the Houston Rockets? How are you going to compete with the Oklahoma City Thunder? And you waste, I think waste is too harsh of a term, but you use your final roster spot on an unproven NBA quantity, I wouldn't be thrilled. But if you're telling me a team that is in retool mode, is looking for hard workers, is looking for a cultural reset, you're going to bring in somebody who has something to prove, somebody who wants to make it back in the league on a 1 year, by the way, a 1 year deal, a 1 year deal. So this is a prove it deal from him. This is somebody who already lost his NBA dream. He already lost his NBA opportunity, and he went and he played overseas, and now he's getting an opportunity to come back. If you don't think that every single second of every single practice, this guy is going to put in everything possible that he could give, like, I don't know what to tell you. And I think the quote from Frank about being the hardest worker that is also certainly something to be keeping an eye on for Suns fans. But I want to hear what you guys have to say about this as well. Drop your thoughts on this in the chat. I want to bring up, this is from Sam Cooper over on the timeline. The Suns front court. Rasheer Fleming, 6'9" with a 7'5" wingspan, 240 pounds. Nigel Hayes-Davis, 6'8" with a 7'3" wingspan, 255 pounds. Oso Iguodaro, 6'10" with a 6'11" wingspan, 235 pounds. Kaman Malawach, 7'1" with a 7'7" wingspan, 250 pounds. Mark Williams, 7 foot with a 7'6" wingspan, 240 pounds. That also does not factor in Nick Richards. Going from a team that didn't have the size, didn't have the versatility, didn't have the length to this, you at least see what they're doing here. This ain't Mike says, feels like we're bringing in a bunch of dudes with something to prove. 100% agree. Daniel says, so we have length and girth. Okay. That's definitely what we need. Freckled Mamba, our boy Ayrton in the chat, says, how much help does Kobe Brea need? When you break down what Brian Gregory has done in the meantime since he has taken over for the Phoenix Suns, right? And if you want to say it's Brian Gregory, if you want to say it's Matt Ishbia, I don't care, man. I don't care. I'm not going to discount Brian Gregory, but at the end of the day, all I care about is the results. And the results, as far as what the Suns went from to what they are, is they went from old, they went from slow, and they went from small to a team that has front court depth, size, athleticism, and now a little versatility with some shooters in there as well. And then they went and they got an established guy in college in Kobe Brea, who's been knocking down threes, Dylan Brooks, who's an absolute dog and a hard worker, and Jalen Green, who also has something to prove. Out of anything, Jalen Green is the guy whose work ethic I think is the most in question on this, because we don't know about Malawach, because we don't know about Rasheer Fleming. And I personally don't have worries about Jalen Green's work ethic. I have worries about his decision-making. But I do think that this is something that embodies a new era for the Suns. As fact is somebody who wants it, somebody who's going to try hard, somebody who fits the modern NBA mold of 6'8" with a plus wingspan, who could shoot threes and defend. I mean, this guy's not going to be a superstar. I mean, if he is, I'll be happily eating my words. But like Russell Smith in the chat says, one of our diehards says, I think he becomes a decent role player for the Suns this season. I think that's the ceiling, right? I think the ceiling for this guy is 7th, 8th man, right? So somebody who is going to be a consistent rotation player, somebody who comes in, plays good wing defense, plays good help side defense, knocks down some threes, maybe creates a little bit off the dribble. I don't know if that's going to be his role in the modern NBA, jumping from overseas to here. Usually you have to take a step back. Like if you're the guy overseas, you're not going to be the guy when you get over here. Even Yabusele wasn't the guy on Philly during their injuries. So I think this is somebody who, if we're talking like peak ceiling, and this is not me predicting that he's going to do this, but his peak ceiling, I truly believe, is decent rotation piece, decent wing that can play alongside all of your acquisitions this year. He could play alongside Mark Williams. He could play alongside Malawach. He can play alongside Rasheer Fleming. He could play alongside Kobe Brea. He, of course, can play alongside Devin Booker. He could play alongside Jalen Green. He doesn't fill this role and take up a spot for somebody else, right? This doesn't impede Rasheer Fleming, even though you could say they maybe end up in the same spot. If I'm the Suns and I just went and got a second round flyer on Rasheer Fleming, let me go get somebody who's been overseas, who's been working his ass off to go and compete with you every single day. So I really am not like, I'm not going to say I'm like thrilled about this to the point where I'm going to like jump off and do backflips and tell you that the Phoenix Suns won the offseason because they signed an overseas MVP and finals MVP as well. Like, I'm not going to do that. But we do have some other free agent news here. While everybody is here, let's just keep y'all up to date. Former Suns have been signing with some other teams. Breaking news from Shams Charania. Free agent center Mason Plumlee has agreed to a 1-year deal with the Charlotte Hornets. Why do the Suns and the Hornets keep on switching players? What is going on? Why do they keep on switching players? Okay, so Mason Plumlee with the Charlotte Hornets, that's going to be their veteran big man. They got rid of Yusuf Nurkic for Colin Sexton. They said, oh, we'll just do what the Suns did, and we'll just bring in Mason Plumlee here. Obviously, they also drafted Ryan Kalkbrenner there. So I like what Charlotte's doing. And, you know, with Plumlee, he doesn't belong on a competitive team. I think is a good vet in that locker room. I think that's a good pickup for him. Tyus Jones signing a $7 million 1-year deal with the Orlando Magic. I actually like that fit for Tyus. I don't love Tyus and what we saw from him for the Suns this past season, but I do think that if you put him around a defense that's as competent as Orlando, that he could fit in there. He did shoot the hell out of the ball. I'll tell you that. He went through some cold stretches, but during his hot stretches, he was shooting over 40% from three. So I like that deal for Orlando. So no Tyus Jones reunion with the Suns, no Mason Plumlee reunion with the Suns. I know fans are so sad about that. And obviously signing Nigel Hayes-Davis means no Chris Paul, means no Russell Westbrook, no DeAnthony Melton, no Gershon Yabusele, no Taurean Prince, no Trendon Watford. I mean, we're really taking a flyer here on this guy. But for those of you who are just jumping in, just a little over 400 here, we'll be wrapping up here soon. I'll be honest with you. I can't do an hour on this guy. I wish I could. We're going to dive into the tape. We'll be back for you tomorrow at 3 o'clock to break down this signing. Maybe we'll bring you some more trades. We'll talk about Bradley Beal. We'll do everything like that. But I do appreciate all of y'all jumping in here just to give kind of some final thoughts on Nigel Hayes-Davis, the player who's won an overseas MVP. He's won an overseas finals MVP. He's been selected to the first team in the Turkish League and the Euroleague, and he's won championships. This is a guy who has worked his ass off to get back to where he is, and you can give credit to Frank Kaminsky for telling him that, as for telling Gerald that about how hard of a worker he is. Somebody who, when he was in college, he was expected to be an NBA player. played 1 year in the league in 2018, averaged about 3 points per game. He just was not fit to be there. Went overseas, worked on his ball creation, worked on his three-point shot, his offensive touch in general, but he always had the motor. He always had the defense. Jesse says, what's Nigel's play style? That's a great question and a great way to end this. To me, the play style overseas and the play style in the NBA are going to have to be different. Overseas, he's got the ball in his hands. He's hitting shots off the dribble, contested threes. He's a shot creator and somebody whose motor on defense is just going to sick him on the opposing team's best player, right? So that's his overseas archetype. That's what he plays like overseas. In the modern NBA, here on this team, realistically, you're looking at like best case scenario, a 3-and-D forward. Worst case scenario, he's your depth break in case of emergency piece that you put the ball in his hands when the game's out of reach and you say, do something to entertain the fans that are here, right? But realistically, you're looking at somebody who's going to be guarding wings, guarding fours. I don't think he's strong enough to guard fives. I don't think that just looking at him, he's strong enough to guard modern bigs. Probably like bigger fours is going to be where he maxes out. Maybe he could switch on to be a good POA defender on guards. I'd have to look a little bit more into his defense. I have to watch some film on that, but before I give a little more takes on that defense. But spot up shooter, somebody who can hopefully spread the floor and have a little bit more of a veteran presence than a Rasheer Fleming, even though, he's basically played as many NBA minutes. One last question from Chef Brian Gregory. I think that's Tony in the chat. Says, one last question. So can we assume the Suns want to give Colin Gillespie a shot? We can't have Book at point guard again. I think realistically, Book and Jalen Green are going to be starting for the Phoenix Suns, and Colin Gillespie is going to be off the bench while being a spot starter. I'm banning this guy. All right, get out of here. Put user in timeout. Come on, man. I gave him enough slack. So I think with Colin Gillespie, I think he's going to get a really big role with this team. I think he's going to play a lot of minutes, and he's not going to be in the same spot that he was before, where he's a two-way guy and then earn some minutes at the end of the season. I think Colin Gillespie is a legit rotation player for this team starting of the season. And if he's better than Jalen Green, then he starts. But I do not think that he is going to go into the season as a starter. Everybody's saying I gave that guy too much slack. Listen. I'm solo rolling here, okay? So I'm trying to keep my eyes on as many things as once. But I'll tell you what, guys, that's going to about wrap it up here for a shorter edition, breaking news edition. How about 400 of you showing up to talk about Nigel Hayes-Davis, overseas MVP? The Suns used their final roster spot. Thank you all so much for tapping in here. If you're new around here, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Nobody's covering the Phoenix Suns like we are here at PHNX. Live shows 5 days a week at 3. We'll have some coverage out at Summer League for you. We'll have free agency coverage. If any trade happens, we'll be doing that as well. Plus, we got film breakdowns. Come on, Malawach's game-changing, elevating defense for the Suns. Steven broke that down in a film session that posted over the weekend. If you want to know more about Malawach, Rasheer Fleming, and Kobe Brea, I had a 20-minute interview with Stephen Gillespie over at No Ceilings about how the Suns had a flawless draft, and I did 10 extra minutes for our diehards only. So you can become a diehard today at gophnx.com/join. Plus, if you're new around here and you don't know, we also have merch. Gophnx.com. Click on the locker. Click on the merch. Buy our new alignment t-shirt as well. Mine is in the mail. I cannot wait for that as well. Drop a comment. Leave a like. What do you think about Nigel Hayes-Davis taking the Phoenix Suns final roster spot? Don't worry. We're not going anywhere. I'll be back talking Suns with y'all in less than 24 hours. Appreciate y'all. Take care, and we'll talk to you soon.
We all silly like the mayor.